The J. Michael Show.
Welcome to another episode of The J. Michael Show. I have a wonderful guest today, an author of romance books. But first, before we get going, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel, like the different episodes, comment when you can. Anywhere you're watching or listening to the show, we really appreciate your subscriptions, and it really helps us a lot. Okay, my guest is author Emma Kate. We're going to meet her, and we'll have some questions for her. So let's meet Emma. Emma, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I am so glad that you were able to do this. My wife is enjoying all of your books. In fact, she's how we got hooked up. So I want you to talk about how you started out as an author writing books and introduce yourself and tell the audience a little about who Emma Kate is.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll start with the easier answer, who I am. I write romance books,
Hmm.
primarily small town romances. A couple of them have some sports, a couple with workplace. If you are a romance reader or know what, and you know that tropes are where we live. So I really love to stick within those kind of small town and sports tropes. And they're spicy, which is important to know going in. You know,
Hmm.
those doors are open. So um, and I published my first book back in August of 2024. So I have not been at this very long, but have two books out. My second one came out in January, and my third is coming out on June 10th of this year. So very excited about that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, my story isn't too much different than a lot of authors. I think you come into it, you either love to write or you love to read. And I love both, but definitely came about it from the reader side of things. I devoured romance books and just had that idea that I couldn't get out of my head. I'm from a small town, and so have always loved that and um, aspect of small town romances and just the community side of it. And I had a love story that I just kept banging on my mind, saying, "Hey, what if you wrote me down?" And so I said, "You know what if?" And here we are, 3 books later.
Hmm. Now, all of your novels take place in the same small town, right? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, all 3 of my stories take place in Wild Bluffs, which is a small town in eastern Colorado, which doesn't say a lot for my creativity because I grew up in eastern Colorado and live in a small town in eastern Colorado. Not the same one, but so it's, write what you know type of a thing. But um, it's the books are interconnected standalones is the term for it, but it's one where you don't have to read book one in the series to understand book two. Each story and each couple's journey to their happily ever after stands on its own. But if you do read all of them, you get a bunch of the side characters carry over, and then they're the main characters in one of the books. And so you get some of those fun crossover moments where you're like, oh, I'm seeing this couple that I came to care about in book one. I get to see them again in book two, see them again in book three, but you don't necessarily have to come in at book one like a true
Hmm.
series where they're following in order.
Now, the town is fictional, right? Or is it a real town?
It's a fictional town.
Hmm.
Definitely. I've learned more and more. The more based off of fiction and not real life it is, and it's actually easier for me to write because things are just so much more complex in the real world than they can be in in one novel. But it is a completely fictional um, town. It is based off of the town I grew up in, which is Ray, Colorado, with a
Hmm.
W. A little town of about 2,500 people. A really great community to grow up in, and so easy to base a, small town community off of, just because everybody is so involved in each other's lives for both the good and the bad. But everybody knows everybody and cares about everybody, but also cares enough to be in your business.
So, just asking, is this kind of like Lifetime or Hallmark Channel type shows? The books are written like that?
Yeah, there would um be a lot of similarities between them. I mean, and
Hmm.
with Hallmark, if you're out there, if you want to adapt one to a movie, yes, I'm on. But they would have a lot of similarities. They all have the happily ever after at the end of each one. They are the cute, funny. They're none of my books are too deep in terms of getting
Hmm.
into really hard topics in a deep way, or some of the darker side of that you can get into with some of the romances.
Yeah.
I would define them as rom-coms. A lot of banter, a lot of sarcasm, um, and but also pretty, light and happy.
So, how old are the characters in the book, the main characters?
Yeah, they range. So the kind of general answer, average, I guess, is late 20s. The youngest of the six main characters that I've written is 24. She's just out of her grad program.
Hmm.
And the oldest are in the book that comes out in June. They're both 34. So they kind of range. And in the first book, they're 28 and 30, I believe.
Okay. So, let's go through the main characters and the secondary characters in all three books. Tell me about each character and describe each one for me.
Sure. So we'll start with book one, and you're kind of going to have to track two different families as we go through this. So just putting
Hmm.
that out there.
Sure.
The first main characters, the female main character is Bryn, and she is a 28-year-old who works in marketing. She is a workaholic who has sworn off dating, as all good love
Hmm.
interests have. They she's very focused on her career, and she comes from Wild Bluffs, so she's a local. She grew up there, and she out on the golf course, the private golf course nearby.
Hmm.
They out in the sandhills. She meets a professional golfer, Jameson,
Hmm.
and Jameson and Brand, hit it off in the way that so many great stories do, where at first they're like, I'm sorry, who is this person? Why are they talking to me? And that grows into some bantery interests where they're like, oh, I like someone who's going to verbally spar with me, who isn't gonna, um, and their story unfolds from there. And so those are the side characters that you're seeing in this story. In the first story, Jameson has a younger sister. He also has Lila, and he also has a best friend, JT. And you're seeing them interacting together and with with each other, which
Hmm.
um, and then Bryn has two sisters, both older than her, Kelsey and Izzy. And so then book two, we stay on Jameson's side of the family. You see, and it's a brother's best friend trope where Jameson's younger sister, Lila, is starts ends up living together with her brother's best friend, JT, and they have not gotten along. You see some of that enemies to lovers tension even in the first book, but that really falls, comes to a head in book two, which is called Wildly Inappropriate. And their summer together is wildly inappropriate. And so but but so then and in that time, Lila is working for Bryn's older sister, Kelsey. So that's how Lila ends up out in Wild Bluffs, is she's working for her brother's girlfriend's older sister, as things end up happening in small towns.
Uh-huh.
Those connections that everybody's like, wait, can you draw it on a map for me? But so you see some of Kelsey in that. You, of course, get glimpses of Bryn and Jameson through the story. And then you also still see the third sister on the Harper, on Bryn's side, which is Izzy. And so then book three is Kelsey's story. So now you're over on the other family's side.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is a workplace rivalry where a Kelsey and another security firm, she owns her own security firm, are competing to win a long-term contract. And of course, the one other security firm in town is who they're up against. And so uh, that the third book follows the competition between the two of them and their eventual love story.
Wow.
And there will be a fourth book. I know everyone is the third sister on the Harper side will get her fourth book, but we are not there yet.
Okay, so we've got three books: Forever
Yes.
Wild, Wildly Inappropriate, and Wild and Free, and that's the one that's about to come out.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write these?
Yeah, I am very fortunate in the fact that up till this point, at least, they have flowed pretty quickly. So the first book took me the longest for sure. And there's just so all three are self-published, and there's so many aspects of self-publishing that I was um I didn't know about, and I've had to learn. And that definitely took some time on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
But so to actually answer your question, I started writing Forever Wild in November of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a first draft done by the end of January of 24. And then it took me from January until August to go through the editing cycle for the first time. So I do work with a developmental editor, a copy/line editor, and a proofreader, as well as have a couple of uh, beta readers and work with an advanced reader copy team to
Mm-hmm.
help make sure that the best product is going out that I can.
Uh-huh.
Um, so almost a year, just shy of a year from starting writing to getting the first book out. Um, and then my turnaround time got much shorter. I don't know how much you know about the romance genre and their readers, but voracious is, I think, the best word to describe them.
Oh.
People, there are a ton of readers in the, uh, especially romance readers. I know this is true of all genres, but they're reading the 50 to 200 books a year. They love to find an author and just read through their entire backlist, so whether that's the two books that I have or 20 books that other authors have. So, um, rapid release is somewhat the name of the game. How quickly can you get your next book out? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very type A person who is like, well, if that is what the standard is, I will do my best to meet it. So
Hmm.
I have been trying to do that, and it is my turnaround times have gotten quicker. I'm not sure that I can do any better than about the 6 months that it'll be between book two and book three, just because that I have three small children. I have a full-time, I have a day job that isn't writing, and so it takes some time, but it is. I try to get in about 3,000 words a day.
Wow. Wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot of writing. Yeah. So okay, so you have Wild and Free, which is about to come out. Are you already working on the next novel?
I am. Not as much as I would like to be. I always tell myself, okay, in this time, like right now, as we're 3 weeks out, less than three, almost 2 weeks out from Wild and Free. Uh, my book is with ARC readers, so the advanced reader copy team, and some people call them ARCs, some people call them ARCs. But they're with the advanced team, and the book is, and I'm I always tell myself I'm going to get so much of the next book written during this time, and then I remember that there's a lot of marketing that you have
Mm.
to be doing when you're a self-published author, and getting all of your release graphics and information and promotions and everything set up just ends up taking more time than I thought. So, to the answer is yes, I am writing the next book in the series, but I'm not hitting those 3,000 words a day. I'm lucky if I get a couple of ideas written down, maybe, a few hundred word scenes or something like that, but nothing like I will move into once the release of this one happens, where I really will set my deadlines. It's all self-imposed deadlines. When can you schedule with your different editors? And I'll finally set those and start really driving my timeline forward at that point.
So, do you already know what's going to happen in this book? You're already planning it out. Can you give us a sneak peek of what it will be about?
Well, I will, just for you.
Okay.
I So book four is going to be about the third sister, the third Harper sister, Izzy, and Jackson, who we've met very, very briefly prior to this, but he's a main character, a main side character in book three in Wild and Free.
Mm-hmm.
He's a world-renowned musician who actually is where Kelsey and her love interest Carter are on tour providing security for him
Mm-hmm.
and his team. And so he's a childhood friend of Izzy, and we get to see what may or may not happen with their love story.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, you said that you have a day job.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself going into writing more full time? Is
I
is that
would
your hope?
It's an interesting question, and one that I throw around a lot. On one hand, I would love, and like the 12, 13-year-old me would die to be a full-time writer. Um, and I think at a um, income level,
Uh-huh.
that's definitely a dream that I would be interested in chasing. The um, hesitation in me is I do enjoy what I do project management for a learning and development company
Mm-hmm.
as my day job. And I really enjoy the people that I work with. I enjoy writing can be a pretty isolating career if you don't have writer friends, if you don't have a team or a PA or someone that you're working with, it can be a lot of hours just you and the voices in your head.
Right.
So there, that is definitely the side that I'm counterbalancing it with, and that I would want to be big enough and successful enough in my career that that I was working with a few people on a regular basis, whether that's a PA or people helping me with marketing that I can meet with and have grown up conversations with every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, you're approached by, I don't know, Hallmark to turn a
Sure.
book into a movie. How receptive of that would you be, and what part would you play in that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Let's imagine for a moment.
Yes. I love it as an thought exercise, and it's not one I've done much thinking on. I think I would be very receptive. I would want to have some amount of say in
Right.
the um
Creative control.
some amount of creative control,
Right.
knowing that it's not like it's a deep book with layers upon layers of subliminal, messaging that we're trying to make sure is getting um, moved through. But I would want to make sure that it's holding fairly true to the story and the vision that I had. I think the part that I would most want to have a say in. And honestly, it's where my cover designer, I work with an amazing cover designer, Emily Wittig. She has done all three of my books, both the discrete covers and the model covers. And the feedback that I'm always going on. I was like, I understand that this is a small Colorado town, but those mountains, those do not exist out on the plains of Colorado. I need you to find a small town photo that
Right.
isn't like a mountain town. And um, I think that is what I would be the most worried about. The main characters, I think they would, do a good job with, but it's for me holding true to the like small rural plains town where it's just not the same as the mountain towns in Colorado that I would think those Hallmark executives would be like, we're putting this in the mountains. And I'd be like, I'm not a big fan of that.
No,
So
that's not where it belongs.
that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
that's not the heart of my story.
Yeah.
So
Okay, another thought project here. If you could cast a movie with your characters, what actors would you want and actresses to play those pivotal roles? Let you
that is
think
a
about
great
that.
question. That is a great question. And one my unimpressive memory for names is not helping me here.
Yeah.
Who are those actors and actresses? And now I can think of no one. I don't think I'm going to be able. Um, oh,
Okay.
there are zero names. I don't know if I could tell you my name right now. You asked a question about people, and I don't know who they are.
Have you done several interviews yet on as being an author like this?
I've done a couple. So
Uh
I've
huh.
joined virtually a few book clubs and some of that. I was at a signing event in Utah, which was great. And I got to talk face to face to to a lot of readers, and which for me felt like an interview. I hope for them it didn't. But you are my very first podcast, and I'm so
Oh.
excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm honored. I'm very honored to be the first.
Yeah.
Okay, so this book, Wild and Free, now it hasn't been released yet, but my wife has actually started reading it. So is this like preliminary copies were sent out? How did you do that?
Right. Yep. So she is part of my advanced readers team.
Mm-hmm.
And so I how it works in general, this is something self-published authors traditionally published author, everybody has these advanced teams that
Mm-hmm.
receive the book depending on where you are in the order. Sometimes, if the book is not very far along, you're often called an alpha reader. If it's a little farther along, you're a beta reader.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to the mostly finished copy, you know, where there might still be a few small edits that get made, and but they're the advanced reader team, and they get ARC's advanced reader copies. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone does it a little bit different in terms of how many advanced readers they want, as well as how what their criteria are for who can be part of that team.
Mm-hmm.
I am I'm a believer in the more the merrier, at least at this point in my career, particularly.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of people less than a year ago who were giving a completely unknown author a chance on, and by being part of my team. And so I try really hard to work with readers who maybe don't have as large of a following, which is on social media, which is oftentimes what is a criteria for other authors or PR teams as they're deciding who will be part of this advanced readers group.
Right.
Um, but I like finding people who, you know, maybe I'm their first time being on one of these advanced teams, and I think it's a fun connection that we get to have for the rest of our lives. Like, you were one of the first people to read my books, and now, you know, I'm one of the first authors that you get to be on their team, and I think it's a fun exchange of
So, how
just
does someone go about getting to be on one of these advanced reader teams?
yeah. A lot of times there's different signups. So mine, I use my social media and my newsletter list. So I do have a newsletter, an author newsletter that I send out
Right.
about every 2 weeks that I talk about my life, the writing process. I also give some recommendations for books that if you like what I write, you might want to read some of these. And a lot of authors have those, and um, they'll put signups in those to join the advanced team. They'll also post them on social media. Some authors I at this point have not, but will work with PR companies that are specifically for authors who have a database of people who, you know, read books and write reviews, whether that's on social media or Goodreads or, you know, the Zon, any of the places where readers find books. Authors are looking for people who will help get their content there.
So, does it cost anything to be on this list and get the book in advance?
No. So there's you get the you have to apply to be on the teams,
Mm-hmm.
almost always, and you know each author filters who gets to be on the team based off their own criteria. And then they give you a free copy of their book in exchange for your honest review, is typically how the
Right.
language is put out there. And you know, there's always drama in the book community, but there is some
Yeah.
disagreement on what that looks like in terms of, you know, should you wait to post a more negative review just so that the book has a chance to, you know, the fewer reviews that you have, the more one review impacts kind of overall ratings and things like that. But
Right.
I think in general, authors, one, are putting out the best product that they can, but two, really do want readers honest reviews. And so, you know, if you to be on the team, you read the book and you review. And the other side of that is we are all humans. We've all missed deadlines. And I think that's true in these situations as well, where, you know, I've gotten emails from readers and they're on the advanced team and they're like, I am so sorry. Like, I am just not going to get it done. Or I'm really going to try to, but, you know, I'm dealing with this health issue or this family issue. And I'm like, this is not your priority. Like I so
Right.
appreciate the commitment and to me and to the book, but like if at any point reading is becoming extra stressor in your life, like
Right.
you're doing it wrong, don't let it be. It should be fun. This should be a, fun mutual exchange of you get a free book, I get a review that, even negative reviews help books. You've been
Right.
on review sites before where something only has 5 stars and you're like, this, I'm skeptical, so even those negative ones, they help bring up the credibility of a score. So
Right. So, do they get a digital copy or do they also eventually get a hard copy?
that mine only get digital copies, which
Hmm.
was a big learning for me that I needed to put that E in front of the, you know, copy, so that everyone we were all on the same page. It's Some authors will send out physical copies. It's really a factor of multiple things. One, obviously, is the cost, right? The printing cost of getting a hard copy, and then the mailing cost of getting those sent
Right.
out across the, typically U.S., but also world. If some of the bigger authors will expand to international, which I'm like, whew, international shipping. That's when you know you're big time, if
Yeah.
you can afford the international shipping. But they, and then, so some will send it out to their whole team. I think more common is some people will get on the team will get the ebook, the e-copies, and then a handful or select few will get PR boxes, the physical copies with some stickers and things like that. Typically, my understanding is that's based off of your followers, how big of an audience are you able to share the book with? And then
Hmm.
typically a few, like extras from the smaller following groups.
Hmm.
And then I think a lot of newer authors, we stick with the ebooks because it is more cost effective,
Yeah.
and also it's the manpower
Right.
that you have to be able to send out, a lot of books, get everything stuffed, get everything packaged, get it all, appropriately labeled. It takes a team sometimes.
So, if somebody wanted an autograph, how would they go about getting a book that's autographed by the author?
Yeah. For me,
Hmm.
I have not gotten into the direct sales game. So you have to find me at some signing event. I went to one in Utah, which is, fairly close to Colorado, in March, and I am actually going to be in Denver, Colorado, at a romance only bookstore called the Spicy Librarian, June 14th, kind of doing with the release of Wild and Free. I'm going to be there signing books for a couple of hours, and I've, shared that on my social media and things like that. But for me, you kind of have to find me. If you are dying for a signed book from me, I mean, always email me, reach out on social media. I would love to have someone that excited about having a signed copy that they're, willing to willing to reach out, and I can make it happen. I just, again,
Yeah.
from a logistics standpoint, don't have that a storefront set up where I
Right.
can sell one-off things. But a lot of authors do. They either have a book store that they work with where they kind of always have signed copies of their there, or they have their own online store set up where you can buy one-off signed copies.
So, at this point, are all of your books just ebooks, or do you have some that where you do have hard copies of them?
I do have hard copies of them. So all of them, including on June 10th, Wild and Free, will have paperback versions. I don't have
Hmm.
hard copy versions
Right.
for hardbacks for any of them, but I do have paperbacks, and I actually go through Amazon's print on demand service
Right.
for that. So, you know, as challenging as Amazon can be in so very, very many ways, their print on demand service has really done a lot for the self-published author world. It used to be if you're if you want to have physical copy books that you have to do a entire print run, which depending on what printer you're going through, that can be, it might be 500 books, it might be 1,000 books, and then you not only are paying for that up front, but you're
Right.
also sitting on an inventory that you have to store and move and all of the things. And so um, right now you can get my books printed through Amazon.
Yeah.
And then when I go to some of these author events, I do keep a very small, like 10 of each book, in my own storage that I will bring with me so that I can um, sell to readers there.
So, do you prefer to do it this way, or if Phantom Books called you tomorrow and says, "We want your book," would you rather go with that, with a publisher?
It's an interesting question. I never considered going the traditional publishing route and querying and doing all of that. I always really appreciated the independence that indie publishing um,
Mm-hmm.
gives authors. And now, if knowing what I know now about how much work goes into the marketing side of being an author,
Right.
if I was approached by a large publisher, I think it would very much so depend on their answer to the question, how much marketing help are you going to give me? Because
Right.
I think the truth that I'm learning is that a lot of traditionally published authors aren't getting a lot of marketing help from their publisher, that they, are still very much expected to be in charge of their own online presence and, a lot of that. And so I if I'm still going to be doing the same amount of work and have less control, and
Right.
I think I would stay self-published.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that I wouldn't, under the right circumstances, go the traditional route. But I think I would be a lot more skeptical of of the offer, and really make sure that I did my due diligence on what are they actually bringing to the table when I've already
Exactly.
done all the work myself.
Yeah. And you do all the work. So you have to wear all the hats. You're the publisher, you're the writer, you're the marketing agent. You're doing it all. Is that difficult for you?
It is hard,
Uh
and
huh.
it's very enjoyable. I've always been the type of person who, doesn't want to sit down and do the same thing for work every day.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate, and I am just a nerd, and like I love learning new things about new things. And so the fact that, I'm one day taking an online course on social media marketing, and a week later I'm, trying to figure out how you keep books for a publishing company,
Uh huh.
it's I appreciate that. But it definitely, when the deadlines start getting closer, and the stress starts hitting, you're like, it would be great if I did not have to learn how to do each and every piece of this job. So it's a little of both, I guess, to answer
Yeah.
your question. I enjoy the challenge of being everything, and it is very overwhelming sometimes to be all of the different jobs.
If you had some advice for an author or a potential author who wants to get into doing this in writing, what would be your advice to a new author?
Yeah. Well, the advice that I didn't listen to, that I was given and is out there, and I was like, no, 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 that's not for me, was to have more than your first book pretty well done, at least written, before you start trying to actually publish them and release them, so get them pretty well through the process so that you have a little bit of cushion between them. Where, and I heard that and I was like, yes, I understand how in theory that sounds great, but I'm just gonna like, that would mean that it's going to be even longer. I got the book done. Why wouldn't I publish it right away? And I just think that if had I waited, had I actually listened to the advice of others, it would have allowed one. I think my first book would have been um, a little bit better. I learn with each and every book, and I think that they're all wonderful and I love them in their own ways. But at the same time, as you would hope, anyone doing a job over and over again, I get better. And I think I could have gone back to the first one after writing book three. And with very little time, I could have just up leveled it slightly, just
Right.
just enough. Um, and and I would have had the space to feel less stressed as I'm learning all of these things. I wouldn't have been trying to figure out marketing and taxes for as a self-published author, and order stickers to go to my first book signing, and it
Yeah.
just gives you a little bit more of that space to kind of take the steps one by one, because once that first book is out in the world, you're off and running, and there is the you I suppose in theory you could just pause everything and not market it and not do any of the things and just let it sit out there, available, but not really do anything with it. But especially your first book, it is like your first child. You're like, I
Right.
love it. It is perfect. It must, I must continue to pour my heart and soul into it. I can't just let it sit out, just sit there while I do nothing for it. And so I think that taking if I had list if I could give myself advice and I would actually take it, it's to just sit on it a little bit longer before you publish it out in the world. Get a little bit farther ahead in your writing, in your planning, in your business development, before you release that first one into the wild.
Do you ever feel just totally overwhelmed with all of this?
Yes, I I would love to tell you no. I mean, I would, but it is so overwhelming some days. I will say tax season this year, it was all of it. I was like, I don't know if I've been bookkeeping correctly. I don't know if of these contractors that I'm working with. It was a whole just rabbit hole spiral for me. Of small business, right? Small business ownership, some of those things where you're like, and and then there's the days that are the overwhelm is so much more imposter syndrome, right? Like there's no right answer to how you write a book, and there's never going to be one book that everyone loves. And so you know, getting to the point in a book where you have it almost done, and then you're working back through it, and you hit a part, and you're like, who do I think I am? What made me think I could write books? This is, and then your mind flashes back to that one-star review that you accidentally saw one time, and you're like, well, they knew what they were talking about. I don't know what I'm doing. This character is trash. I don't know.
Oh,
But at which point it is so nice to have the author friends, the kind of early alpha or beta readers that you can be like, can you please just read this and tell me that like I that this is an okay book, that like I should keep going, and having the friends and the confidence in them that they will tell you the truth but also not be too harsh.
Yeah. Okay, the books are Forever Wild, Wildly Inappropriate, and the new one, Wild and Free, is about to come out. Where would someone be able to find you and find these books to download themselves?
Yes, thank you. The best place to find me is my website, authoremmacate.com.
Hmm.
Sign up for my newsletter there. You'll hear from me once every couple of weeks. I think I'm funny in my emails, so other people stick around, so I think they do too. Um, and social media, I am on Instagram at authoremmacate, and I am very responsive on there. If you want to chat, the links to my books are also at both places. And, um, I am always happy to chat, to hear how you're loving the books. My favorite thing is when people drop into my email or my DMs and are like, I just reached this chapter. What are you doing to me? I'm like, ha 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 ha. So, yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to put links under all of this interview when it appears on YouTube, when it appears on audio podcast platforms. So there'll be links there where you can find Emma. Um, Emma, thank you so much for being my guest. I have enjoyed this and learning more about you and all of the wonderful novels that you have. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we will see you next time on The J. Michael Show.
Goodbye.